Hello, this is charter number 16, a team of horses. Finalmente, said Fabiola as I walked into the kitchen for breakfast. They will not tell us what they decide to curb until you got here. She turned back to the stove to flip a tortilla on what Graham called the black trivet. We wait until everyone is here, said Bernardo. Pedro winked at me. Here's the rest of us, said Graham, with Owen and Ruben right behind her. My carbines were all over the table. Bernardo scooted his chair and pulling another chair over so I could sit between him and Pedro. ¿Qué? Said Flora. What? Tell us. Bernardo started talking fast and excited in Spanish, and Pedro nodded. Then Pedro stood up and paced around the kitchen, describing something and using his hand to express his excitement, waving them around. All this made his big belly dance. Fabiola translated. A gigantic branch like a big tree instead of leaves. There will be pigs and bears and fish and crocodiles. The panther lying here and an elephant sleeping there. Little parrots, giraffes, and monkeys all together. Pedro sat back down and reached over and hugged my shoulder. And on the top, continued Fabiola, un león, the king of the beast, it will be maravilloso, wonderful. It was definitely going to add maravilloso to the super Spanish word list. Shh, shh, the neighbors, they could hear, said Pedro, putting his finger to his mustache. People are jealous and could steal our ideas. Naomi, you can come to the market with me or stay and care with the crazy men all day, said Graciela. I knew she was kidding. Aquí, I said. Here. Graciela rolled her eyes. Bueno, como quieras, as you wish. She pulled the shade on the back door before she walked out. A few minutes later, Benny arrived. He backed a truck into the yard and unloaded tubs filled with twists and gnarled, nutty and contorted red vegetables that didn't resemble any delicate little radish that came from Graham's garden. Graham stood over them with her hands on her lips. I have never seen anything like them in my life. Why? They looked like giant, overgrown jams that went through a pretzel maker. I think some of these are as tall as Owen. Bernardo, Pedro, and Benny each dragged in a big tube of radishes into Flora's kitchen. Owen and Ruben had the job of misting the radishes with water so they would not dry out. They both took they both took this duty seriously and sat on the floor with their water bottles ready, waiting for the first cuts to be made. Bernardo grinned at me and Ruben his hand together in anticipation. Then he picked up a knife and started to carve. What happens to these radishes after the festival? Asked Graham. After the judging each booth gives away the dolls and characters, it is good luck to have one of them on your table for your Christmas feast. But soon they dry up and must be thrown away. All that work and they only last a few days, said Graham, shaking her head. But of course, said Bernardo, it is for the joy of doing it, of participating, and for the prize if you win. The men's fingers were nimble, and I was amazed they didn't cut themselves. They twist and turn the radishes as if they were on spools, making impressions that often left the radish with a face of a remarkable feature, like an elephant's knee in a nutty world. Outside, the radishes were dark and brownish red. As the men scraped off the layers of skin, they revealed true red, the palest pinks and in the heart of the radish white. But the white was thin, as if someone has tried to bleach of pink blows, and around the edge of the seams the faintest trace of rosy color remained. I watched the men make magic out of vegetable and copy them. The radishes cut like potatoes, only firmer and gave way much easier than soap, which meant I made more mistakes. Benny said I could carve anything I liked, as long as it was an animal. I made little elephants, doves, bears, and squirrels, sticking at first to things I'd carved before. At the end of the day, we covered the radishes with damp towels and set them in coolers. The next day it was the same. We worked for hours, laughing and talking and singing songs in Spanish. I didn't even care that I didn't know all the words. Fabiola, Graham, and Flora made full and lemonade, and when Owen and Ruben's excitement could not be contained, Graciela took them away to find lucky spiders. On the last day of carving, Benny brought in a radish that looked like a giant bulb. What will you do with that? I asked. It is for the crow, the lion. We want to carve it. To thank for your idea. I looked at Pedro and Bernardo and they nodded. I took the radish from Benny, knowing that this was an honor. I held it up and examined it. The lion could be sitting facing up with the front legs straight and resting on its back legs. That way I could curve the entire mane in a giant jagged circle. Yes, said Benny, perfecto. I studied the radish again and made a few careful cuts. If I scraped a very thin layer of red in a long line, it curled slightly. Could I get a curled mane on the leon? Leon, thinking the name reminded me of the tiny thread of hope which I clung. If my father come to the festival, would he see the radish tree full of animals and remember what he cared for us all those years ago? Would it make him happy? Would he like to know that his daughter was a carver too? Today is the day, I whispered to Gram in the morning of the night of the radishes, waking her from a sound sleep. I had already dressed. I had already dressed in my peasant blouse, jeans, and huaraches. Gram sat up and pulled the light blanket around herself. Naomi, what time is it? Early, but I couldn't sleep. Gram ran her hands through her thin hair and cleared her throat. There's something I want to say to you before you get going. I sat down next to her. Gram, everything will be fine. Now let me talk. Lately, practical matters seem to be closing in on me. Like what? Skyla might be right about a judge not wanting to separate a natural mother and her child, even after all the bad she's done. While I've been here, I have to come to the conclusion that maybe I should be preparing for you that situation, just on the slim notion it might happen. I don't know how I will ever get along with you, but I'm more concerned with how you will get on without Owen and me. But I will not come to that. I said firmly. Let's just plant that in your brains. Graham laughed. I'm pleased you have adopted my positive attitudes, but even if we do find your father, I am just not sure what kind of cakes this mess will turn out to be. What if he wants you and Owen for himself? What if he wants the children to stay here with him? Then what? Then you'll have to stay with us, I said, kissing her in your cheek. And you'll have to learn some more Spanish. After lunch, with Pedro, Bernardo, and Benny in the front seat, and Owen, Ruben, and me crowded into the back, we rode in the truck to the center of Oaxaca City. Behind us in the truck bed, the coolers held the mysterious radishes. We unload the cooler and tubs of supplies on a corner, and Bernardo dropped the truck back to Barrio Jalatlaco. He will walk the 13 blocks back to the town square with the women. We look with a caravan of horses plowing through a field of tourists, or our arms full of supplies, coolers, a metal wash tub filled with radish leaves, bags with extra knives for last minute tweaks, a big plastic bowl filled with mousse, which we could use as a carpet for the scene. After finding our assigned table, the boys and I waited while the men checked in with the officials. El Zócalo was a square park bordered with a large trees, corralled in fancy black iron fences. Their white branches created deep shade. In the middle of the park, a fountain bobbed and manicure hedge protected the flower beds dotted with blooms, yellow, red, orange, and white, like a rainbow of colors in the fruits vendors' stall at El Mercado. Next to the street, long tables had been set up for the festivities, surrounding the entire park for a block in each direction. In front of the tables, a raised wooden viewing platform ran alongside, with a metal railing to keep dust. Graham called the Lucky Loose a reasonable distance back, like a frame is inside a frame inside a frame. The trees, tables, and viewing platforms box the entire park, with openings now then through which people could pass. El Zócalo blazed with color-filled paper flags and giant balloon buckets. I looked at every man who passed on the street. Our father could be any of them. He could even a man pretending to be our father and wouldn't know the difference, would I? Benny, Pedro, and I spread the moss on the table. Owen and Ruben took their post with the water bottles, waiting to spray something, anything. It wasn't long before Graciela, Flora, Fabiola, Graham, and Bernardo's arrived. I looked at Bernardo. I want to stay and help set up. It is more important than you are with Fabiola and the other to ask about your father, said Bernardo. All of the carving is done. I promise we will make it look beautiful. And then you will be surprised like another touristas. There is much for to see as well. The judging wasn't until 5 o'clock, so we had time to start all the stall next to ours and walk